For decades, Israel has built the most sophisticated layered air defense system on the planet. Iron Dome, David's Sling, Arrow 2, Arrow 3. A multi-billion-dollar shield designed to protect 8 million citizens from every threat imaginable. But in the last 72 hours, intelligence reports have surfaced that are sending tremors through Tel Aviv's defense establishment. This is not another missile test. This is not another proxy threat from Lebanon. This is the nightmare scenario Israeli strategists have feared for years. Because there exists one weapon, a single system, capable of blinding Israel's entire air defense network in a matter of hours. No missiles required, no aircraft needed. Just silence where there should be signals. And the nation that possesses this weapon has just demonstrated it is ready to use it. This is Battle Trace. To understand why this weapon represents an existential threat, we have to rewind. Israel's air defense philosophy was born from trauma. The Yom Kippur War of 1973, when Egyptian missiles devastated Israeli armor. The Gulf War of 1991, when Scud missiles rained down on Tel Aviv while citizens huddled in sealed rooms. The lesson was seared into national memory. Never again would Israeli skies be unprotected. And so began the most ambitious air defense project in modern history. Layer upon layer of protection, short-range systems for rockets, medium-range interceptors for cruise missiles, long-range batteries for ballistic threats entering from space. The Iron Dome became a symbol. Footage of its interceptors lighting up the night sky was broadcast around the world. It was proof that technology could defeat terror, that math could overcome martyrdom. But here's what the promotional videos never showed. Every interception requires data, radar tracking, trajectory calculation, target identification, communication between batteries, coordination with command centers. It's not just missiles that protect Israel, it's information. Rivers of data flowing between sensors, computers, and launchers at the speed of light. And rivers can be poisoned. What happens when that information flow is corrupted? What happens when the radars see ghosts? What happens when the computers receive false coordinates? The answer is simple. The shield becomes blind. And a blind shield protects nothing. Now, we need to be extremely precise about what we're discussing because this weapon doesn't destroy. It deceives. It's called an electronic warfare kill chain, and Iran has spent the last decade perfecting it. The system combines 3 devastating capabilities into one coordinated assault. First, GPS spoofing. Israeli defense systems rely heavily on satellite positioning to track incoming threats and coordinate responses. Iranian engineers have developed transmitters capable of flooding the electromagnetic spectrum with false GPS signals. Interceptor missiles that think they're heading toward a target could suddenly veer off course, chasing phantom coordinates. Think about that for a moment. Reports from cybersecurity firms tracking state-sponsored hackers suggest that Iranian cyber units have been probing Israeli defense contractors for years, not to steal secrets, but to plant dormant code, sleeper malware that sits quietly in network infrastructure, waiting for activation. One command, one trigger. And suddenly, data links between radar stations and interceptor batteries go dark. Targeting computers crash and reboot. Launch authorizations get scrambled. The missiles are still there. The radars are still there. But they can no longer talk to each other. This is not theoretical. In 2019, Iranian-linked hackers successfully penetrated the networks of multiple Israeli defense contractors. The full extent of that breach has never been publicly disclosed. And here's what makes this weapon truly terrifying. It doesn't need to work perfectly. It just needs to work for a few minutes. If Iran launches a saturation attack of 500 missiles while simultaneously activating its electronic warfare kill chain, even a 30% degradation in Israeli response capability could mean dozens of missiles reaching their targets. Not intercepted, not deflected, impacting. Let's pause and think like a strategist. For decades, Israel's doctrine has rested on one assumption: technological superiority, better sensors, faster computers, more accurate missiles. This superiority allowed Israel to project power despite being vastly outnumbered by hostile neighbors. But electronic warfare is the great equalizer. You don't need a $5 billion fighter jet to jam a radar. You need engineers, time, and the willingness to think asymmetrically. And Iran has all 3 in abundance. So how is this threat being assessed around the world? Well, let's start with Washington. The Pentagon has been quietly alarmed by Iran's electronic warfare advances for years. A classified briefing delivered to the Senate Armed Services Committee reportedly described Iranian EW capabilities as approaching near-peer status in certain domains. Near-peer. That's the language reserved for Russia and China, not for a country under crushing sanctions that supposedly can't even refine its own gasoline. American defense planners are now questioning whether their own systems in the Gulf region are similarly vulnerable. If Iran can blind Israeli radars, what about the Patriot batteries protecting American bases in Qatar and Bahrain? Then there's Israel itself. Defense Minister Gallant has publicly acknowledged the electronic warfare threat, calling it one of the top 3 strategic challenges facing the IDF. Behind closed doors, the concern is even more acute. Sources within Israeli defense circles suggest that significant resources are being redirected toward electronic warfare countermeasures, hardening communication links, developing frequency hopping radars that are harder to jam, creating isolated backup systems that can function even if primary networks fail. But retrofitting a defense architecture takes years. Iran's capabilities are advancing now. Russia's role in this cannot be ignored. Moscow has provided Iran with technical expertise in electronic warfare for over a decade. The same jamming technologies that have disrupted Ukrainian drones over the Donbass have been shared with Iranian engineers. When Russia deployed its Krasuka 4 electronic warfare systems in Syria, Iranian military observers were present. They studied. They learned. They adapted. This is how capability transfers in the modern era, not through formal arms sales that can be sanctioned and tracked, through knowledge sharing that leaves no paper trail. And China is watching all of this with strategic interest. Beijing has its own reasons to study how electronic warfare performs against American-designed defense systems. Taiwan operates Patriot batteries. Japan relies on Aegis radar networks. Any lessons learned from degrading Israeli systems become applicable to the Pacific theater, but the implications ripple far beyond the Middle East. Consider the global arms market. The Iron Dome system has been sold or proposed for sale to multiple countries. Azerbaijan, the UAE, even the United States Army has purchased batteries for evaluation. If confidence in these systems erodes, the economic and strategic consequences are enormous. Defense contractors like Rafael Advanced Defense Systems and Raytheon have billions of dollars riding on the perception that their products work. A single night of successful Iranian electronic warfare could crash stock prices and crater export deals for years. This creates a perverse incentive. Governments may be reluctant to acknowledge vulnerabilities because doing so undermines their own defense investments. Meanwhile, adversaries are taking notes. Hezbollah, Iran's most capable proxy, operates sophisticated electronic warfare units of its own. They have been testing Israeli systems from Lebanon for years, probing frequencies, mapping response times, identifying gaps. In any future conflict, Hezbollah's estimated 150,000 rockets become exponentially more dangerous if launched in coordination with electronic warfare suppression. It transforms a war of attrition into a war of overwhelming first strikes, and the technology is proliferating. Yemen's Houthi forces, once dismissed as primitive rebels, have demonstrated GPS jamming capabilities against coalition aircraft. North Korea has conducted electronic warfare exercises targeting South Korean defense networks. The lesson is spreading. You don't need to outspend your enemy, you need to outthink them, and electronic warfare is the thinking man's weapon. Then there's the nightmare within the nightmare. What if electronic warfare is used not just to degrade defense systems, but to mask a different kind of attack entirely? Nuclear facilities, leadership bunkers, power grid infrastructure. If Israeli air defenses are blinded, even temporarily, the window for a decapitation strike opens. Not against cities, against decision makers, against the very ability to coordinate a response. This is why Israeli intelligence considers electronic warfare not just a tactical threat, but a strategic one. It doesn't just enable missiles. It enables regime change scenarios. So, where does this leave us? Israel now faces a set of painful choices with no clear answers. Option 1. Massive investment in electronic warfare defenses. Harden every system, create redundancies, develop counter-jamming capabilities. This is the safe path, but it's also expensive and time-consuming. Iran continues advancing while Israel plays catch-up. Option 2. Preemptive strikes against Iranian electronic warfare infrastructure. Target the jammers, the transmitters, the cyber warfare facilities. But these assets are mobile, dispersed, and often co-located with civilian infrastructure. The political cost of such strikes could outweigh the tactical gains. Option 3. Develop offensive electronic warfare capabilities of Israel's own. Threaten Iran's systems with the same blindness. Create mutual deterrence in the electromagnetic domain. But escalation in this arena is unpredictable. Electronic warfare doesn't respect borders. Jamming signals could affect civilian aviation, maritime navigation, and neutral countries. And then there's the wild card. What if Israel simply cannot close this gap? What if the asymmetry is permanent? This would force a fundamental rethinking of Israeli security doctrine. Less reliance on defense, more reliance on offense. Less interception, more preemption. A shift towards strategies that prevent launches rather than stop missiles in flight. The political implications of that shift are enormous and terrifying in their own right. The Iron Dome was never just a weapon. It was a promise that Israeli children could sleep safely in their beds, that life could continue normally even as enemies sharpened their swords across the border. That promise was built on technology, on radar waves and computer algorithms and the assumption that information would always flow freely. But in the electromagnetic spectrum, information is a battlefield. And on that battlefield, the rules Israel mastered no longer apply. The dome still stands, but the eyes that guide it are under siege. And when the eyes close, even for a moment, the sky becomes a very different place. This is Battle Trace. We want to hear your analysis in the comments. Do you believe Israel can counter this electronic warfare threat, or has Iran found the Achilles heel of modern air defense? If this breakdown gave you new perspective, make sure to like this video, subscribe to Battle Trace, and hit that notification bell so you stay informed on the conflicts reshaping our world. Stay sharp, stay aware, and thank you for watching.